Well, this is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com. We're talking about the laws of nature. The first volume of our common law tradition, the laws of nature, is due process, the way things are done. Our Constitution of the United States is a slice of that, the way things are supposed to be done respecting government. 333 questions in the Stansbury's Catechism on the Constitution of the United States. We're on question 100. Oh, Miss Francine, you probably told me. I'm rushing around here and I didn't even look. Probably, let me look. Yeah, you told me. 118.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, thank you. Question 118, Catechism, Constitution of the United States, published 18 and 28, the same year as, oh, here you are, the same year as Webster's 1828 dictionary. If any other person shall coin money in his own name, or shall stamp it so as to resemble the coin that coined at the mint, or that which, though coined in other countries, is allowed to pass as money in the United States, called current coin, may be punished. Let me read that again. It's a question, but it's too long in my estimation. He should have divided it up, but for some reason he didn't, and I'm not going to second guess him. I didn't write this. If any other person shall coin money in his own name, or so as to resemble the coin that coined at the U.S. Mint, or that which, though coined in other countries, is allowed to pass as money in the United States, current coin, may he be punished for doing so? Answer. What do you think? Yeah. That's the crime called counterfeiting. 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 And may be punished in any manner Congress shall appoint. I knew a fellow one time, happened really a friend of mine. I didn't represent him, but my friend did. Boys fiddling around, and they had dollar bills, and they were putting them on a copy machine and copying them, cutting them out, playing with them. You know, they were teenagers. No, they were college boys, young college boys, probably around 18, 19. One of them even dropped his drawers and jumped up on the computer and wanted to get a picture of his buttocks. Remember, they did all that. And just for fun, they said, yeah, these things even look cheat anybody. They just want to see what would happen if they tried it. And then even if it worked, I was persuaded they would have said, no, that's not real, and give them the real money, you know. They tried it. It was a joke. It got around. Somehow it got around to the wrong people, namely the U.S. Marshals. Boys were arrested, charged with counterfeiting. True story. They got off easy, but they paid. It was sad. No, another fellow that got fed up with this true case, and I knew the lawyer that handled it. He was out in San Diego, I believe. Very ambitious man, had several businesses, and very security-minded. He had security cameras all over his businesses. He had a steel distributing business, a welding business, all sorts of businesses. If he could turn a buck, he was doing it. He thought, well, if I quit paying my employees in dollar bills and pay them in coin that the United States has coined, you know, the United States coins gold money. 1/10 of an ounce coins, 1/4 of an ounce coins, 1/2 an ounce coins, and ounce coins. They're called liberties, or walking liberties, some people call them. They're just coins, United States money. And I think, well, they have denominations written on them. Like one coin is $50, like that. Of course, an ounce of gold, if it says $50 on it, Can you get more than that for it? Sure, you can get, I think it topped over $3,000 a couple of days ago. 309, something like that. But he said, well, it may be worth 1,000, 500, whatever it was at that time, 1,500, but it says $50. And he tried to, he did, he paid his, he had bought coins from the U.S. Mint, which you can do, paid his employees that way. And then the feds found out he was doing it. I don't know how. And they came after him for assuming that what it said on the coin was the value of the coin. This is a tough situation, friends. If the government is going to print money on paper that says it's worth $100, well, obviously it's not worth $100. It's a piece of paper. Has no industrial value. Gold has industrial value, more than it ever has had, by the way. And it has holding power. Paper doesn't have holding power. It wears out, burns up, whatever. If you can take a piece of paper and put $100 on it, which they do, take other pieces of paper that cost the same amount to print, same amount for the paper, same amount to print, just pennies to print each one, $100, $20. But then when you write $100 on one, it's supposed to be worth more than the one that says $20. There's a law of nature that a fellow named, I think his name was Grisham or something, observed about that kind of money and how people look at it. It's a law of nature. It always works, always. And the law says this: bad money, cheap money, junk money, monopoly money, whatever you want to call it, drives good money, real money, gold, silver, out of circulation. Bad money drives good money out of circulation. As they say in the Wabash Valley, circulation. I said that and I thought, wow, I know it's not pronounced that way, but that's just in my DNA because that's the way I heard it all my life. Circulation. Bad money, cheap money, junk money, monopoly money drives good money, gold and silver, out of circulation. Well, why does it do that? That's a law. It does. If you get a gold coin, you'll take it and you'll store it. You won't pass it on to the next guy. If you got junk money pass along, you'll do that. Oh, this is worth $100. Go if you. It's a well-known law among economists. Bad money drives good money out of circulation. Well, they were taking these gold coins, of course, and hoarding them. That's where hoarding comes from. You start hoarding the stuff that's valuable because you may need it for a rainy day, a tough day, hard times. This stuff's really got value. And when the paper money goes down, I've got something worthwhile. We talk about, oh, that song, who was it? George Goebel. He used to be famous. Little fellow with a crew cut. He was funny. He got started on the barn dance at WLS back in maybe about 1940, in the 40s sometime. But then he got on television later when I was young and very famous. But his signature song, he'd just stand up. The guitar was bigger than him. You know, he'd stand there and play. I mean, he'd sing, and he couldn't sing that good. He wasn't a crooner. People just liked him. I liked George Goebel. Something about his personality that drew people in. And he sang a song about a horse, a $5 nag that he bought for a whoop and a holler and a counterfeit dollar. He bought the nag for a whoop and a holler and a counterfeit dollar. No, a Confederate dollar. A whoop and a holler and a Confederate dollar, I think. But that's what I remember. That's what I thought, whether or not he said it. But that's the idea was that Confederate dollars, it was a saying for a long time, I'll give you 10 Confederate dollars for it, and that means I wouldn't give you much for it, because Confederate dollars by the end of the war were worthless, because they were stupid enough down there to print money out of nothing. It didn't work. Never does. Never does. You got to give it time. Now, if you got a situation where they're propping it up like they are now with a system of income tax to control the inflation, it can work for a while longer, but it has to come to an end at some point. Well, you're not supposed to counterfeit money. And one other point about counterfeiting, and this applies to all of life too, and all areas of life. In order to recognize a counterfeit dollar, those that are tasked with recognizing them and prosecuting counterfeiting do not study counterfeit dollars. They study real dollars. And they know the details of a real dollar bill down to the nth degree. The nth degree. And because they know the details of the real McCoy down to the nth degree, when they see a counterfeit dollar, they can recognize it immediately. You want to know what false religion is? Don't study it. Well, I studied all the different kinds of religions, so I understand them. No, you don't. You'll never understand false religion unless you focus all of your energy and time on true religion. You focus all your energy and time on the Bible, and then when you see another variation of false religion, you'll know it as soon as you see it. Don't waste your time looking at counterfeit, studying counterfeit, trying to understand what is counterfeit. No, spend your time knowing the truth, knowing the true God. Don't know about him, no, know him. And anything that's false that pops up, you'll just shove it aside, lickety-split. You won't have to struggle over it. You won't get sucked into the wrong thing. Have I ever been sucked into the wrong thing? Yeah, I have. Wrong practices, I can't say. The Bible promises, and it's true, we won't get pulled away from the truth, but we'll get sometimes thinking something is proper, something is biblical, when it isn't. Stay away from those kind of things. As I get older, I get more intense about that, and I wish it could have happened sooner, but it just flat doesn't for anybody, because we're all flawed and we don't know the truth. We have to learn it. And getting some extra, so-called extra measure of the Spirit of God will not substitute the discipline of learning the truth. God will write on your heart, your new heart that he gives you, the new birth. He will write upon it a desire, an insatiable desire, an uncontrollable desire to get the pure milk of the word. Peter, desire, that means lust for, like you used to lust for booze and drugs and a joint. Lust for this, the pure milk, the mother's milk. It's not formula. It's unadulterated. That means it's not mixed with any admixture of error. Says Peter, the apostle, not me. Peter. And he was with Jesus Christ. How do you get to know Jesus Christ? This book. There is no other way. And any substitute, any priestly practices and ceremonies that have nothing to do with the Bible, which means most all of them, you won't get the Bible. You won't know God. This is how you know God, through the laws of nature and creation around us. And that will lead you to the final court of last resort. I told a fellow the other day, where was I? I talked to so many people. Oh, I know where it was. I was talking to two boys outside of a grocery store. They stopped me. These young fellows, 18, 19. They stopped me and wanted to talk to me. I thought they worked in the grocery store. They had those name tags around, you know. I found out they didn't work in a grocery store. They were standing beside a little table, and they were trying to get me to donate money to some world hunger organization that I didn't want to donate money to because I know they steal the money and nobody gets fed. I know that. Oh, I work for an organization. Well, I ain't buying it. No, they're paying the people to run these kind of deals $700,000, $800,000 a year. I'm not opposed to that. I just know none of the money gets to, they just keep hiring people, increasing their wealth, and pretty soon its existence becomes the most important point. Oh, I've seen it. Oh, have I seen it? I've seen organizations like that had an office. They did mailers. They were on the internet, and that was it, claiming they were feeding. Who are we kidding? If you're dumb enough to give money to those kind of things. Well, anyway, I got to talking to these boys. I think they were sincere. Found out one of them was from France. France. That means he could speak French. So I pumped him for some information I wanted to know, and it reminded me again that the French pronounce all of their words with such incredible detail of innuendo and tone that there's no way that I was ever going to pronounce any of their words right. It's impressive the way they pronounce words. It's shockingly impressive how precise and intricate the tones are. I said, slow down and say that again. I was fetched up. I told him I was fetched up in a place where all the roads, all the towns, not all of them, but a lot of them, all the rivers, all the creeks have French names. Just like out west in a lot of places in the Northwest where the French trappers got there first, and they ended up naming the Indian tribes, like the Coeur d'Alene tribe. Of course, there's a town called Coeur d'Alene. Get up to Iowa, you got Des Moines. That's a French word. DePaul, Indiana. And I said I grew up near a place called Terre Haute. He said, what? I said, that's French words. He said, well, no. He said, say it again. I said, Terre Haute. He said, how do you spell it? I said, Terre, capital Haute. Oh, he said. And then he said it the way they said it. I couldn't even recognize it. It's just weird to me. Well, he said, I got to do my job. I'm going to promote you. And he tried to promote me. And then I said, you got religion, son? Yeah. He said, I'm a Catholic. I said, that stands to reason. You grew up in France. And then I said to him, would you kiss the Pope's toe if he stuck it out for you to kiss? I said, I don't know. I said, he demands that if you ever go see him. I said, are you a loyal Frenchman? He said, what do you mean? I meant like, vive la France and all that stuff. Are you loyal to the... Well, he said, if you're asking if this is a young Frenchman now. He said, if you're asking, am I loyal to the government? He said, absolutely not. I said, what are you loyal to then? I'm loyal to France. Well, what does that mean? Are you loyal to the land of France? He said, well, yeah, I guess. He never thought of it. And I said, well, you're a Roman Catholic, right? Are you loyal to the Pope? Oh, he goes, oh, I see what you're saying. I said, well, make your choice. It's one or the other. It can't be both. Loyalty divided is no loyalty at all. Which is it? What does God demand? He said, well, the Pope says I've got to be loyal to him first. He has all authority on land from Jesus Christ. I said, well, then you're going to have to make a choice, aren't you? He said, well, who are you loyal to? I said, I got a paper pope. Paper pope. The record of what God said is law and testimony. That's how I know him. I talk to him. I pray to him. He works in my life. Now, that boy was young. When he gets older, it may come back to him. I may have planted a seed in his brain that'll overwhelm him. I hope. I'll pray it does. That's really all I said. To him, we could have talked about a lot of other things. 119. Suppose they counterfeit not the money of the United States. Somebody doing something like that. But the stock issued by the government. Government issues a U.S. savings bond or something. Are they punished the same as if they had counterfeited money if they try to print up something that looks like a U.S. savings bond? Answer. Yes. That is counterfeiting according to the terms of the Constitution of the United States. Why? Well, the Constitution says this. That is again our law to counterfeit the current coin and securities of the United States. Securities, like a bond, a stock certificate, anything that is negotiable paper that represents value. I had read a case once when I was in a securities case. I was trying to figure out, well, what's going on here as security? Because it says the current coin and securities of the United States. I found out that the U.S. government, if they want it to be a security, they'll call it a security and bring you under purview of this. I've read one case that said, well, what is a security? Everything from chicken coops to contracts. Anything they want it to be. It shouldn't be that way. But it is of great note, my friends. Watch me. The Catechism on the Constitution. Well, I said, here's an interesting thing about the Constitution. Constitution says it's counterfeiting to counterfeit. It's a crime to counterfeit the current coin and the securities of the United States. Now, dollar bills are securities. They're not coin. And they are not, in our case, issued by the United States. Now, this is the ablative of source. We call it in the English tongue. It's important to parse these words. The current coin or securities of, that's the ablative of source in the English. That means from the United States. Well, who issues Federal Reserve notes? The United States? No. The Federal Reserve Bank issues Federal Reserve notes. They are not securities of the United States, you see. So if they're not securities of the United States, I'm giving you my well-studied legal opinion on this. If they're not securities of the United States, and they're not current coin of the United States, seems to me like you could produce them all day long if you wanted to, but it doesn't work that way. They'll come after you. What do I mean to say? I mean to say that the federal government's not paying any attention to the Constitution at all. This is easy. What is a security of the United States? That's something that the United States government issues. Abe Lincoln said, I'm going to issue securities. The United States is going to print and issue dollar bills, $20 bills. He didn't live long enough to see it. Jack Kennedy, commonly known as John Kennedy, said he was going to do the same thing. He didn't live long enough to watch it happen. Don't think it did happen. He didn't live. Our Constitution of the United States says this, friends. Our Constitution of the United States doesn't allow any paper money. All current money, our Constitution says, shall be gold and silver coin. The general government in Washington, D.C. has no authority to do anything but what our Constitution expressly says it has authority to do. Our Constitution does not give authority to the United States to print money. All all circulating money is to be gold and silver. The states, the individual states, our Constitution forbids them from issuing gold or money, just money, period, yeah. So the only money that's allowed in America, that means current coin, current money, is gold and silver coin. Now that's the way we've understood that phrase current money since before the King James Bible was printed. As a matter of fact, the King James Bible uses, as do the other early translations, uses the phrase current money. In the book of Genesis, the phrase is used current money. Why? Because that was part of our English tongue. And current money in the English tongue meant gold and silver, period, end of sentence, end of paragraph. That's it. Then why is it and how is it we're being flooded without stop by unconstitutional money, fake money, unlawful so-called money, issued from an unlawful source? Why? Because our parents and our grandparents and us don't know the difference, don't understand the difference. Who was it? One of those fellows that we call the big shot back when our country started, and they were supposed to be smarter than everybody else. He said, much of the evils of society, seemed like John Adams said it, much of the evils of society comes from a people not understanding the nature of negotiable paper. What's negotiable paper? That's any piece of paper has something written on it about a debt. Any piece of paper that is evidence of a debt. I owe you $100. Signed, Brent Winters. If I do that and give it to somebody, that's evidence of a debt, and that's called negotiable paper, a negotiable note. You can take that and say, listen, this guy just wrote me out and signed it, said he owed me money, $100. I'll sign under his name, give it to you, and you can collect the $100. See, it's negotiable. You can negotiate it to another person. I remember when I was growing up, we'd work on the farm, help the neighbors, we'd put up hay, do odd job, whatever. Help them castrate hogs. We did that. Clamp cattle. Same kind of idea. We call it clamping. Brutal procedure. We'd work, and they'd write us a check. I remember one time I put up hay all afternoon for old Neil Shover. He did custom baling, and he was always looking for young men to help. And my brother and I weren't big enough to help, but he hired us because he couldn't find anybody else. And what we were doing was taking hay and pitching it up in the hay mow down there south of Needmore store. And for good, I call it a day's worth of work, I got $7.50. I considered that a lot of money. It was for a boy my age at that time. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know nothing about banking, as they say. What do I do? So somebody said, well, you can take that to the gas station in town. That's a checker station. Or the marble station on the other end of town. And you sign your name on the back, and you turn it over to him, and he'll give you money. And he can take that and sign his name under yours and turn it over to somebody else if he doesn't want to use it. That's called negotiable paper. Some of you remember when that was a common practice. I remember when that was a common practice. What is negotiable paper? A check, for example. It's evidence of a debt. Pay to the order of, well, that's an order. to the bank to give money to somebody else. That's what it is. So it's evidence of a debt or IOU. It's like an IOU. What is it? Well, it's a substitute for money. That's what our law calls it, a substitute for money. What's money? According to our Constitution of the United States, it's gold and silver coin. The Bible uses the term current money. Current? Well, what does that mean, current money? That means money that's in current. It's in circulation. It's circulating. It's in the current of the stream of commerce. It's current money. It's moving from one person to another. And paper, a negotiable paper, is a substitute for current money. It is not money. No, not really. It's a substitute for money that we use, but it's not a good one. It's a very dangerous one. And by the way, negotiable paper can't have any other promises on it, any other commitments, any other evidence. It has to be simple. I owe you $100, Brent Winters, period. If I put anything over there, and by the way, have a good day, or Merry Christmas at the bottom, it's not valid anymore. You say, well, my checks say have logos and bank stuff on it. Yeah, but that's not you writing it. There's no promises there. Negotiable paper has one promise on it, or it's not valid. One evidence of debt. That's it. Well, that was for free. Let's go to the next question. Get one more question in here. So let's see. Question 120 out of 333. What other power belongs to Congress? Now, here's a good one. I remember learning this when I was trying to prepare for funny how I remember all this. Oh, it had an impression on me for the Constitution exam. Drop a footnote here. Why is the Constitution, we're not Mormons, maybe you are a Mormon, I don't know, I'm not. To Mormons, the Constitution of the United States is of equal legal dignity with the book called the Bible. Now, some of you say, well, I'm Mormon. And no, I never taught that. Well, that's your official doctrine, though. I know it is. I've read about it. Supreme Court Justice Sutherland immigrated with his family from Britain to the United States for the sole purpose of going to Utah and becoming Mormons. They heard about the Mormons. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. They came to Utah, settled down, opened up a business, whatever they did. I believe his father was from Scotland, his mother was from England. They became Mormons, or as they say, Latter-day Saints. They're Mormons, as far as I've always heard. People will chafe about what names you use. I'm not gonna. I don't care to know the difference of the counterfeits. I want to study the real thing, but I'll tell you what I know about Justice Sutherland. His family got disillusioned real quick, and they quit Mormonism. Said, no, we're going back to just historic Orthodox, not Orthodox, I don't want to use that word, the Reformed Christianity from England. But because he was in Utah, he studied at Brigham Young College or University or whatever they call it. This is what I remember reading. Now, this hasn't been real recently, but it hasn't been a real long time ago either. Sutherland was one of the justices of the 20th century. He ended up going to school there. And when I read his opinions, I come to the conclusion that because of the environment he was in Utah, he did gain an exceedingly high view of the Constitution of the United States. Remember, the Supreme Court of the United States is never to entertain or accept a case that does not have a question that needs to be decided about the Constitution. If it's some state law, if it doesn't have to do with the Constitution, the Supreme Court of the United States has no jurisdiction to take the case. But the opinions that he delivered, obviously, he was exceedingly respectful of the words of the Constitution of the United States, and I assume it came from being in that awash in that environment to respect for the Constitution. The good thing about the Mormon doctrine is that it does inculcate respect for the Constitution. The absolutely damnable thing about that is it says that the Constitution is equal in authority and dignity as a writing of legal significance with this book. That's a damnable lie. Of course, it stands to reason. It makes you realize if they would put the Constitution up with this, well, this doesn't have much dignity in their eyes, and it doesn't. I mean, do they give any attention to this? No. Anytime you take another writing, listen to me close, friends. I'm not the first one to say this. Men a lot smarter than me have said this for many, many decades, centuries. Anytime you take a writing and you say it's equal with another writing, and it isn't, then you will give more attention to the lesser writing that you say is equal than the one that is above this one. Do not add to, this book says, do not add to this book and do not take away from it. Do not do that. And if you do that, what will happen is, God knows us better than we know ourselves. This book will recede from consideration. And whatever you're putting beside this book will become the thing. And that's what happens in every case, and that's why it says, Deuteronomy chapter 4, don't do that. It says it in more ways than one all through the Bible, getting to the book of Revelation, where John says anybody adds anything to this book, the plagues of this book will be added to him. How strong can it be? And deny that? I'm not going to do that. No, I have more respect for my own safety than to fall into that kind of foolishness. The Russian and Greek, the Orthodox Church does that. They say our tradition is on equal dignity with the Bible. So what do people in the Greek Orthodox Church know? Tradition. They know anything about the Bible? Very little. They don't care. That's the way it works. That's a law of nature. I don't have to explain it. I can just see it. And the Bible talks about it. Rome says the same thing. Our tradition is on equal dignity as a matter of legal significance with the Bible. Tradition and the Bible. Well, then what does the Roman priesthood do then? They say, we'll tell you what the Bible says and what it means. You don't need to worry about it. And traditionally, you say, well, I'm a Romanist. I'm interested in the Bible. Here in America, Romanists are interested sometimes in the Bible. Why? Because there's such an overwhelming Protestant influence on the Bible, and Rome and the priesthood can't treat people here the same way they do in France and South America. That's why. It is that influence of people that take this to be final that overwhelms everything else in a Christian nation, no matter what your error may be. Well, Brent, what's your error? I know what you people are saying. I know what your error. I've listened to you, Brent. I know what your errors are. Well, I wish I knew. I'm glad you know. And if I knew, I'd correct them. And if you knew what your errors are, you would correct them too. Because if we're right-headed, we want to do that. And we struggle against it. And all of us, every blamed one of us, has holes and errors in our understanding of God and His Word and reality. And that's why we want to continue to turn it over in our minds, to think about it, to adjust our behavior and our thinking. Me too, of course, yes. I can tell you about, I told you at the beginning about me being sidetracked by things that weren't right, that I thought were biblical. But then I said, wait a minute. No, I come back later. It takes time, friends. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your error is. You're a work in progress. And it's my duty here to say what I know best I understand it. Hope it has a positive effect. Miss Francine, we left off. Oh, let's talk about this and we'll quit this part of it. Question 120. What other power belongs to Congress? Answer. They may establish post offices and post roads. Post offices and post roads. And then it breaks down, what does it mean by establish? What is a post road? What is a post office? But does the Constitution of the United States say that the U.S. government has authority to establish a U.S. Postal Service? And the answer is no, they don't. Clear. If it's not explicitly said, they don't have the power. And say, well, then what about the necessary and proper idea? But it's necessary to have mail delivered. You know as well as I do. There are a lot of people out there chafing at the bit to provide that service. And the Congress of the United States has unconstitutionally passed a law that says it's against the law, it's against federal law for anybody in the United States to deliver letters for money. Did you know that? Yeah. They have an absolute monopoly on delivering letters, not packages. That's why FedEx, if you're going to deliver a piece of paper through FedEx, you put it in a package. That's the law. They'll send you to prison. They send FedEx to prison if they accepted just letters in little envelopes to ship. Oh, they'd do it in a heartbeat if the government would take that restriction off. Why does the government say only we can do that? I'll tell you why. Because the U.S. government wants to know, has always wanted to know who's communicating with who. That's why. That's why they established the Postal Service, to deliver the mail, to see where the mail's going, to keep track of you. I could tell you stories further and more egregious and more ugly than that. It's been going on in America for decades upon decades. The Constitution of the United States does not give the government. We had a congressman a while back in the Midwest. I knew the guy, but he wasn't my congressman. His brother was our congressman where I lived. But every year, he submitted a bill in Congress to obliterate the Postal Service. Get rid of them. They're unconstitutional. Not post roads and not post offices. The government is to provide those buildings and the roads. But man, UPS and FedEx and many other services would pop up real quick. I mean, within 24 hours and be delivering letters. And they do a lot better job than the U.S. Postal Service. FedEx, UPS, those fellas know every moment exactly where every parcel, every package is. They're doing a bang-up job. They got it down to a science. I know that there's failures and has been, but the U.S. Postal Service is nothing but failure. I shipped some books one time, $1,000 worth of books. They disappeared. I tried to find them. Comparative law text, Excellence of the Common Law. Had a whole box of them. They're worth about $1,000 altogether. Shipped them. They never arrived. 6 months passed, a year passed, 2 years, never arrived. They said, well, it says here they're in transit. U.S. Postal Service tell me they're in transit. That went on for another couple more years. And then all of a sudden, they're shipped back to me. I mean, forget all this stuff about these rain or shine. We always deliver the mail. We brave vicious dogs. That doesn't even come close to applying anymore. Veterans are not given preference. They used to be veterans were given preference, but that was all unconstitutional too, even though they did that. They don't do that anymore. And those that work in the Postal Service have no incentive to really do what they need to do and do it well. You wouldn't either. They're constantly threatening them with bureaucratic trouble, lawsuits, the people who work at the post office. It's ugly, friends. I can tell you stories about people I've known, things, what has happened to them that have been in the Postal Service for years and all their lives. It's just a mess, and it's unconstitutional. Let's get rid of it. Well, this is Brent Allen Winters, commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, with